Hey, Gabriel Blake.
Hey, Gabriel Jose.
Where are we today?
I'm still in San Francisco, and you're still in Chicago. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, that's good. I think that we should start just thinking about updating the opening. It's like most of the time we're going to be exactly San Francisco-Chicago connection.
Why don't we ask, hey, Gabriel Jose, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, as I was telling you.
Why? What happened?
Nothing, because I get to see you. But yeah, we can do that. We can do actually just try to come up with some kind of over-energetic kind of,
Until the Delta variant is over and we can record from bars again.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I already have, I don't know if I told you, I found like really, really cool dive bars around that I had to show you. I found like a place that they have like 50% off, so I want to give like a shout out to this. It's called Trader Tots. It's not Trader Sam. It's not. I want to just be clear about it. But they have like $6 Maytais on Monday. So just saying.
Alright.
Yeah. If any of our 5 listeners, live in Chicago, I would recommend just come on Monday. Probably I'm going to be there. If I'm there, the first Maytai is on me.
Alright, well, I'm coming to see you soon, so I may adjust my trip to be there on a Monday.
They're nothing to write home about, but they're still like $6 Mai Tai, so I'll take it.
As long as they get the job done, that's all I care about.
Oh, and they have like $6 pizza too on Mondays. So if they just get drunk and have drunk pizza without moving.
You sold me.
Yeah, and the back patio has a boat in the middle of the back patio.
Can you sit in the boat?
Yes, you can. So you know where we're recording from.
Absolutely, the boat.
The boat. We are going to the boat. But in any case, before we get to that happy event, what did we watch today?
We watched the 2021. I'm gonna butcher his name. Leos Carax. I don't know. He's a French guy. We've recorded a podcast about him in the past, right?
Bad Blood and one of the segments of Tokyo. I watched Holy Motors too, and I think that you watched Paula X.
I did watch Holy Motors.
Oh,
Paula X, I've seen. Holy Motors, yeah, because you recommended it.
Oh, I didn't know. We never talk about it, no?
We did, about the absurd plane scene and how ridiculous it was, and the
No. The playing scene is Bad Blood.
Did I not watch Holy Motors? All right. Well, we can solve this later.
Okay. All right.
We both play him before.
Yep. Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
And this was my pick. The reason why I pick it is because I'm still trying to decide if I like Leos Carax. I haven't watched all of his movies, but he's a famous director. I can see why Gaspar Noé is a famous director. I can see why Michael Haneke is probably one of the best directors of our times. I can see why people love and hate Lars von Trier. But with this guy, I still cannot pinpoint. It's like, okay, this is why you are such a special director.
This is why, literally after I finished Annette, I wrote you and I said, hey, European friend, do you know any French people? Because I need to understand how he is perceived in France. Because there has to be something that keeps convincing executive producers, maybe not executive producers, studios, whatever, to keep giving him money to make films. And I will say that I was absolutely blown away by Paula X when I was 25. Nothing I've seen. I did enjoy his segment in Tokyo, but it was the weakest one. But those are the only 2 things that I've liked by him.
I mean, you didn't watch too much more stuff. Is it maybe Holy Motors, Bad Blood, definitely?
That's true. Yep. Maybe I've only seen a couple of his films. I did see Polar X, Bad Blood. Yeah, no. Okay. I've only seen 3 things by him at this point.
Yeah.
One was a short.
Yeah, and I'm still not sure, if even with Annette, if this is representative enough, because this is weird. Let's just leave it at that. But in any case,
is weird.
Yeah. What is this movie about? What is this weird movie about?
I feel like it's not fair to ask me to summarize this film.
Come on, just give it a try.
All right, so the the film starts out with a bunch of actors and singers in a studio, and they're singing that they're ready. What?
No, I mean, it's like most of the actors that they're going to be like performing the rest of the movie, and the director, Leo Carax,
Yes, he is.
and Sparks, the duo, the brothers that they actually composed
The
the
band that
soundtrack.
wrote
Yeah.
Yes. So they're all in a studio, they're recording something, and then all the actors end up marching out on the street and they start singing about how they're about to start the film. At that point, Adam Driver, who plays I would call him
Henry
Robbie
McHenry.
Dent.
Yeah.
Henry McHenry. He's a famous stand-up comedian. He gets on his motorcycle and goes to perform his stand-up. And his gal, Anne, played by Marion Cotillard, goes off to sing as a soprano in what I would probably call an opera. It's like kind of sophisticated what she performs, but it's not super clear.
Yeah.
Henry is basically the poster child for toxic masculinity hidden by comedy that judges toxic masculinity, but while actually being toxically masculine. Oh God, that was hard to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's kind of like a farce, but he is a bad guy. He's a super bad guy.
But we don't see it until later. I mean, there is no kind of indication until things derail completely.
Correct. So his stand-up is very like, oh, look, toxic masculinity is like hilarious and something to laugh at. But then you later find out, no, he is this guy that he's quote unquote making fun of.
Okay, I have a question for you that is like, I don't know if asking you this now. I'm going to be like waiting until you finish the synopsis.
All right.
Just building anticipation.
No, that's fine. So basically we see a love story between these two. They're both huge celebrities, although Henry is a bigger, louder celebrity than she is. They get together. They end up having a child. His career starts to kind of fail based on a meltdown he has on stage, basically complaining that he was in love and how love was killing him. And her career kind of seems to go off.
Well, he actually makes a joke about killing his wife.
He does, but that's very in line with his style of comedy. But that entire scene, he basically has a meltdown and talks about how love is suffocating him and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
You disagree?
I don't disagree, but I want you to complete. Sorry, I'm not going to be interrupting.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. So the tabloids are absolutely obsessed with these two because apparently, a stand-up comedian and an operatic soprano are like front page news. They end up getting pregnant. She ends up getting pregnant via him. Well, we don't know if it's him. And they have a child named Annette. Annette, for some reason, is played by a puppet for the vast majority of the film. Everybody is singing not the entire time, I would say 75-80% of the time.
85 is most of the time.
Yeah. Even during sex, which was a very funny scene.
Yeah.
There was actually a very, I wouldn't say touching, but I found it beautiful in the weirdest way where Marion Cotillard is pregnant and Adam Driver is not aggressively, he's enthusiastically going down on her, and she has her head tossed back in pleasure, and then it immediately goes to her with her head tossed back on a medical bed while she's giving birth. And I thought, this is one of the coolest transitions I think I've ever seen. I was blown away by that.
Yeah, I'm going to be giving away one of the questions, but it's artistic. This movie is
100%. If there's an answer above yes, that's what I'll choose.
Okay.
So in my opinion, and this is subjective, Henry starts feeling what he did say. He felt suffocated, but he can't do this committed lifestyle, and they end up renting a yacht or booking a private cruise to try and rekindle their love. At least that's what the tabloids are suggesting. We don't really know the true motivations between them. There ends up being a storm. Henry gets drunk. He forces Anne to waltz with him on the deck. She ends up falling overboard. She drowns. Annette,
he basically pushes her over 4.
Yeah. It's basically murder, with plausible deniability.
Yep.
He gets washed up on shore with his baby. He completely neglects his baby in this like existential fit of dread. And she comes back as a ghost, and she's like, I'm going to haunt you forever. And through the baby starts to sing, but using Anne's voice. And
without even like being able to talk yet. And he can already like just vocalize. Yeah.
She can just sing exactly like Anne could, which was very beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a little bit fuzzy. Do they get rescued? I don't think they really show it. Eventually, Henry and Annette get back to civilization, and his career continues to fail, where the world becomes fascinated by this baby who can sing beautifully. The baby becomes like an international superstar.
Well, I mean, you are just skipping that there is only 3 main actors in this movie. And the third actor is the accompaniment, the pianist, when Anne was still alive, but he actually becomes a conductor. So Adam Driver's character goes to him for trying to find a singing career for Annette. And he actually says like, this is exploitation. He's like, no, it's that I just need the money. It's like, she could do the same, she could actually choose.
Yes, and later on in the film, it's kind of revealed that there was a tiny bit of a competition between Henry, this pianist that maybe slept with Anne right before she got pregnant. So Annette's career just goes fantastically. He continues to descend into substance abuse, madness, despair, because he can't focus on anybody in the world besides himself, not his wife, not his kid. He's just all about him. He plans one final magnificent performance at the Hyperbole. Is that what it's called?
Hyperbole,
It's called a Hyperbole.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, before this, they're traveling all over the world. Tokyo, India, just international sensation.
Yeah.
So there's this final performance. Annette goes out to sing. She refuses to sing. Henry is just dying in the sound booth. And she says, Daddy
kill people.
Daddy kills people, yes.
Because at that point, he has actually, as the pianist, now being a conductor, is that he actually brings up the fact that he was the one that taught Anne, like, the song that I think that is like the key one. Is like, we love each other so much. He teaches to Annette, and then he actually reveals that he used to have an affair with her before she met Henry. There is never like any kind of no, we were like cheating on you, but there is a bit more that the baby may be even mine.
Yes, he claims to be the father.
Yeah, without like any kind of backing up or maths or anything. So Adam Driver freaks out and he murders the Big Bang Theory guy, while Annette is seeing it, and that's the reason why she stops singing, but he still wants like one last song, and that's the reason why she goes into Daddy Kill People.
And that song, We Love Each Other So Much, that was supposed to be just Henry and Anne's song. So when he hears Annette singing it, he knows something is amiss, and that's how that's all introduced. So after Annette says Daddy kills people, he's arrested. He's convicted of the crime of killing Big Bang Theory, right? But not Anne, I think, because he was cleared of all, criminal responsibility. He gets convicted in a court that we see, which was also a very beautiful scene. It took place in an incredible, beautiful room. They ask him to promise to tell the truth, and he says no because you'll kill me. He ends up getting convicted. He goes to jail. Annette comes to visit him as a puppet.
Yep.
And then Annette shows up
Yep.
as a real human, and the puppet kind of falls to the floor and is just there. They have a tremendously just devastating conversation, in my opinion, about, she basically says, this isn't great, but at least you're safe in here. You can't drink, you can't smoke, and you can't kill people. And then she sings to him, and you don't have anybody to love. And
nobody can love you.
I can love you. And she's like,
no,
no,
you can't.
you don't have anybody to love.
Yep.
And the movie ends.
I have to say that I like that kind of ending about like, no, you are completely alone. It's like, it's not that you have me for loving, it's that you cannot really love anyone because you don't love yourself. It doesn't, it's like, it goes to that point, but it's like, it's pretty implicit that it's like, that kind of self-hate that you were like using as a comedy is like something that it really is there. And that's why you kill your wife and everything.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of paradoxes presented.
Yeah.
And incredibly well. And in the context of what I'm going to call a rock opera, I don't know if it exactly fits that, but there is constant singing. It's in a quote-unquote modern style. I didn't expect to be as affected by that final scene as I was.
Yep.
And I'm going to be honest, I was blown away by this film. I fucking loved it.
Okay.
I didn't suspect that I would like it, and I was glued to the screen. Even though it was very unconventional, it's not my style. I think the last musical we watched was The Killer Mermaids in Poland.
That was the last one? We didn't watch anything else?
What other... Maybe La La Land has happened since then, but we didn't record about it.
Oh, we watched Moulin Rouge.
Yeah. Okay, I stand corrected. But Moulin Rouge is not nearly as cerebral as this film is, and it's not perfect. It's a mess. It's a beautiful, beautiful mess that I honestly, this is super cheesy, but remember when we watched the 3rd season of Twin Peaks and I told you this is a fucking mess, but it may be the best thing, my favorite thing
There was on TV.
David Lynch has ever done, and I just feel grateful to be able to sit through 20 hours of this. I felt that way about this film. I was like, this is a mess, but I'm just so happy that this exists.
Oh yeah. I think that this is like the kind of bold cinema that is needed. You know, it's like, it's not a musical like La La Land about like pretty straightforward, or Moulin Rouge that you were saying. Is that look, they have a setting, they have an idea, and that's it. Is that this is a bit more of a concept. Now I have some doubts. I have like some questions. Maybe I want to jump about like one of the specific questions, because I had like a bit of a problem. That is, look, it's pretty clear that Leo Carax or Leos Carax or however it's pronounced.
Say it however you want.
That guy, Leo Carax. And Sparks, they actually had like a pretty clear goal in mind. That is that we want to make an opera about operas. Is that there is like several hints about this. There is when Adam Driver talks about Marion Cotillard's character, that is like, you die every night, you elevate people, but then you die, and then you bow. It's like there is a bit more that this is what operas, what female characters are usually about. You know, it's about like they are just there for just having like a tragic end, and they make like multiple references about like other operas, and everything is operatic. Not only about like the numbers or anything, it's a bit more about like the narrative, about like the wife dying and dying, and then just coming like avant-see about like, and it's not really that important. It's almost like a gesture about like, no, I'm going to be like hunting you. She doesn't really hunt him. She's just there.
She's there torturing him through her voice.
Through her voice, but the voice actually comes from Annette. You know, and he
It's her
actually
voice,
exploits.
right? It's Anne's voice through Annette.
Correct, but it's like he even exploits that. Is that he's still like going to be abusive to Anne's character even after her death, even after she says like, I'm going to be like hunting you. Is that I'm going to be like using this to my benefit. Even your hunting is actually like just something that I can abuse of, you know. And I feel is that this it's not that I watched like many operas, but it's that this is an opera. It's like, it's true that some of the songs may be like more pop, rock or whatever, but it's like in elements, in absurdity and in stupidity in some stuff. It's like this feels more like an opera than a regular musical.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't seen that many operas, but honestly, I was reminded a lot about this opera I saw a few years ago called Norma, and how dramatic it is, and how the main character, she dies kind of senselessly, and everything is just so dramatic. And what struck me about this film and about the opera is that operas don't typically spend any time doing character development or explaining any like rationalizations behind reasons. It's just emotional. It's like these huge emotions, and then you kind of empathize with what these characters go through without having the kind of infrastructure to handle it. And that's what this film was. Like, I didn't give a shit about Anne. I didn't give a shit about Henry, but these big dramatic things happened while they were singing, and I cared. I cared to an extent.
Yep. Even like when the baby, there is, I think that when they actually show the baby, and she's like, there is something wrong with the baby, and he's like, oh yeah, it's a freaking puppet. You know, it's a freaking puppet. He's like, why did I do that? And he's like, I was watching this with my partner, and he's into opera, and he was telling me, he's like, look, in opera, it's actually not so uncommon to actually babies being played with puppets. So Madame Butterfly is an example of that. And Madame Butterfly is like one that I seen when Adam Driver is going to Las Vegas in his motorcycle, and he started like seeing like flashes of Anne. It's like one of those flashes is from Madame Butterfly, where she's committing suicide.
Interesting.
You know? All of those scenes that he sees from different operas is like about Anne dying. It's almost like he got obsessed on the idea that it's like she dies every night, and then she pauses, and then she comes back. He got like obsessed with this kind of resurrecting cycle that it almost feels like I need to break it. I need to kill her.
I do want to allow me to make you suffer through one of the pieces of trivia on IMDb. I'm just going to read it as is. Annette was not conceived as the movie. It was originally intended to be a Sparks album, the band that wrote the music. Sparks had previously written and recorded a narrative musical titled The Seduction of Ingmar Bergman in 2009 with an extensive cast. It proved too difficult to tour, so the band wrote Annette. The piece was being readied to release and tour when they met Leos Carax at Cannes after featured a Sparks song in his film Holy Motors. So clearly these are well read, for lack of a better word. These are people that are pulling inspiration from classic works, classic filmmakers, and they have created something that's just bizarre and wonderful, and I was really shocked by how much I liked it.
Yeah, I had to say that we come from watching Stillwater. These two movies, they don't have like too much of a different length. Both of them, they're like over 2 hours.
Yeah, 2 hours and 20 minutes, I think, is what Annette was.
Yeah, so, but this movie is engrossing. It's not perfect? No, it's not perfect. Definitely not perfect. There are like many different issues. There are like some stuff that we're going to be like going over it in a moment. But it's enjoyable to watch. You know, it's what you said. It's like, I'm happy that movies like this in 2021 still exist. That they are like so bold and experimental. That they may work, they may be perfect, or they may be a freaking train wreck. And I'm happy that people... I think that Adam Driver, regardless of what I think of him as a singer, that I think that is terrible, I think that he's a talented actor. And he will be like just willing to say that he's like, I want to give it a try. You know, let's see what comes out of this. The Big Bang Theory guy, you said it earlier, he may be attractive, he's not a good singer. He's like, but you know, it's fine. And Marion Cotillard is like, I wish that she had more to offer in the movie. Sita's okay, but Sita's like this kind of more that damsel in distress is damsel advocated to her demise. That is, I wish that there was more to her, but she still does like pretty good.
Yeah, she does okay. And to your point about how inspired this is by opera, she's basically given as much to do as any female in opera. Correct. Which is basically have big emotions and then die tragically.
And then both. Die and both.
And then come back as a ghost and just be completely vengeful. And I have to say, I really appreciate that he didn't care about having beautiful voices, because while singing is a big part of it, it's not how beautiful the singing is. It's just normal, quote unquote, normal people expressing themselves through song, good or bad. It doesn't matter, because that's not what I think that's not the point. It was just a different way to tell a story, and they told it as well as they could through song.
That's true, but it's like at the same time, it's like if they don't sing beautifully, why they're going to be singing? Why do you want the audience to just go through some of the singings from Adam Driver?
Maybe it's okay. So one of my favorite modern composers, his name is Max Richter, and with Dutch Gramophone, a record label in Denmark, they have this series where they ask modern composers to recompose any great work of art.
God, I've listened to that album that you're going to be mentioning so many times these last couple of weeks. But go ahead.
Max Richter?
Yeah, I love that.
Okay, so Max Richter, who's brilliant, and he composes the saddest music, which, emotional cutting for sure.
I had to say something. I have a playlist that is called The Saddest Classical Music Ever Created. It only has 3 songs. I think there is like 1 or 2. I'm not completely sure if it's like 1 or 2 of them is actually from Max Richter.
So when they asked him to recompose something, he chose Vivaldi's Four Seasons, which is the most played of all classical music. And he said, I'm paraphrasing, obviously, he said very nicely, that the Four Seasons is so beautiful, but nobody pays attention anymore because it's in commercials, it's in movies, it's in elevators. And he wanted to tweak it just enough that people paid attention again. And so my theory is that Leos Carax, he just wanted to present a story in a way that was a little bit different, so we paid attention. And if you think, if this was just a straightforward, like the actors were talking like normal, I don't think we would have paid attention to this.
Oh, no. But it's like if they were, it would be missing the point. It's like he's trying to make an opera about operas. It's like if you think about the characters, everything is fake. Absolutely everything that we see on the screen is fake.
Including Annette, which...
yeah, but is the point of actually just saying that is everything that happens to them is just the function of themselves and the story. Is that the audience is like, I think that is like when they are on the musical, on the comedy number, that is like, and now you laugh, and they start like ha 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 ha, and it's like they don't matter. They are not real human beings. It's like the world doesn't exist. The world is like it's basically like Bachelorette, the VR video. When they actually have like the story inside the story, no. Yeah. That is that you get to a point that is like actually the audience is part of the story. It's like in this case, it's like all the audience, everyone, every single human that we see is just a function of the story per se. From that perspective, it's like we could see it in an opera. It's exactly what you said. It's like it sparks designing with the perspective. You're going to be like seeing other stuff, but all of that other stuff is on the stage.
I 100% agree with you. Like, we are so on the same page, it's ridiculous. And I think this is like underscored by, first off, the very first scene where we see the people singing in the studios and then leaving to do the acting. Correct. And then we see Henry on stage. And there are 2 types of people. There are the performers, or there are the people in the audience that are absolutely insanely obsessed with the performer. And then we see Anne, and again, people are going crazy for an opera singer. Like, in this like world he created, there are performers and actors. It doesn't matter. We're all part of it. Yeah.
And the thing is, like, my partner was also saying when we were like just watching it, that is, look, this is how people used to look at opera singers back in the day, back before maybe like early 20th century when cinema was not big, it's like it was not about like the celluloid or anything. It's like this is about like live performance, and the talent that they have is amazing. So it's that that's the reason why they were so obsessed with them. And at this point is that you were like just mixing that back then, this kind of elevated, sophisticated touch of opera, let's say, with the very more campy and stupid stand-up comedian doing stupid jokes that none of them is funny, not even remotely funny, and you are like just comparing. That's the problem that I have with this movie, and I really want you to change my mind because you're like convincing me about like this is better than I actually realized. I had like several problems with it, but one more thing is like, what is the message about this world? It's like, what is the elevated point that you're trying to bring here? Because I see like the Beauty and the Beast kind of situation about Henry and Anne, about like they come from different worlds. One of them is like really sophisticated, that is opera and blah blah blah, and then you have Henry that he comes from an extremely crass kind of business about like you do jokes that they are completely stupid, and it's about like just being offensive and shocking.
For me, and I mentioned this earlier in the recording, this is a portrait of toxic masculinity. It really is. It's about a man who hates himself and can't bring himself even to care about his wife or his daughter. And he uses them until he has no use for them. And ultimately, this guy who was incapable of loving anybody, and as you mentioned, and I didn't even really think about that, he didn't even love himself.
Yep.
This is just about this guy and how he uses everybody until he self-destructs. That's the message to me. Obviously, that's going to be incredibly subjective. I'm sure I missed a lot of the intention from the filmmakers. I saw this as a portrait of Henry.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, one of the things that I was complaining about this movie is that I feel like there are like several things that are extremely timely on this, and they feel like really, really gratuitous. There is a point where they're like driving around LA, and is that they're talking about like the fires that they are desolating everything. There is that you can just see that is that the love that they have for each other is that fire that is desolating actually their lives.
Yeah.
And
there's no subtlety in this.
Well, it's not. But then is that when they actually add like this Me Too movement, this Me Too moment, I just feel it's like, what is the point of this? But is that the funny thing is like I didn't read Adam Driver as a portrayal or a vehicle of toxic masculinity.
Well, it's interesting because the Me Too moment where the 6 girls come forward, that was a dream sequence, and so that's a reflection of Anne's fears, which are actually pretty accurate. Not that he sexually harassed women, but that he was a user. He was an abuser, which he ended up being. He killed her and used Annette.
Yeah, but at the same time is that there was no information before that about it. There was. It's
because that's a projection of her fears.
Yeah, but the thing is like it almost feel. I'm not going to say that this is like the right reading or anything. It's like it almost falls a bit into the self-fulfilling prophecy. Because he starts behaving in a slightly different ways. He starts like just being scared of him. He hasn't done anything yet. The same way that also Adam Driver just dreams, I want to think, that he actually fell asleep on top of her baby.
I mean, yes, it's not overt to like, pound this into your brain, but there's a sequence or a scene or whatever where we see the tabloids saying, hey, we've heard rumors that they're pregnant with a little baby girl, and I think at that point they say maybe to save their marriage, or is that the cruise? I don't remember.
No, that's the cruise. This is
okay.
This is not The Lobster.
Damn it, I love that movie. God, we should watch that. But then you see Adam Driver, Henry, holding his baby with one arm, dancing relatively dangerously while smoking a cigarette over the baby.
But that's after she died.
No, that's right after the baby was born. I could be wrong. I don't know. We should check this out. But to me, that scene was like, okay, he's incredibly reckless with this baby. He's willing to give it secondhand smoke. This is not a father. This is not a caretaker. This is not a husband. It's just an opinion, but I think she was just seeing these warning signs, and her subconscious was like, pay attention. These are huge red flags.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. For me, it's like as I didn't read it like so much like that, it almost felt like, where is this coming from? It almost feels like this is a random moment, but then it's like it's true that the rest of the movie is about like how terrible Henry is. And for me, it almost feels like he's not terrible at the beginning. He's just stupid. But like, I think that from almost every single stand-up comedian. So it's like, yes.
I don't think that he's not portrayed as terrible. We're just not allowed to see behind the curtain. We see his shitty stand-up, which is vulgar and crass. There's a scene where he pretends that he's been gunned down in his performance.
Yeah.
And he falls down dead, and the whole audience is shocked until it's like, oh no. This is part of the stand-up, the comedy.
Yeah.
So I think he is a terrible person from the beginning. We're just not allowed to see him until we go further and further.
Would you say that this is an opera about Me Too?
No, not at all.
But you said it's an opera about toxic masculinity.
toxic masculinity doesn't necessarily mean sexual like abuse or sexual harassment. It's about everything that makes boys feel like they have to be, you know, guys.
I'm better than women.
That's a
just
part
being
of
on
it.
top
It's
of
not
it.
everything. It's
Okay.
like our, you know, my friends growing up and finding out who could. I can't think of an example. I wasn't toxically masculine. I see the connection. I just don't think that's everything. Toxic masculinity does not mean sexual harassment only.
Okay.
It's telling boys they can't talk about their feelings. It's telling boys it's not okay to feel sad or cry. That's also toxic masculinity.
Let me ask you something. I need to ask you this now. Is that, do you think that this is timely or timeless? Because this was driving me insane, like just thinking about it.
I would argue that it's timeless. It's not rooted into 2021 at all. I think these themes of abusers, addiction, abandonment, users, that's a timeless thing. I think we could argue that we recently watched Mommy Dearest. She is a very similar character to Henry, very similar. And that was 30 years ago.
Well, there is a small difference. I think that the character of Faith Dunaway, it was Faith Dunaway, I think, playing Joan Crawford, there is no reason for her to be like that. Nothing, absolutely. There is no like motivation or anything. She starts like just fine, and then she just derails completely on the same scene. And on this is that we see a bit more of a descent, like a spiral of descents into worse and worse and worse until he actually murders people. You know, so I don't. My problem that I had with that Me Too moment, you know, it was a bit more of a. Do you really need this? Do you really need to just anchor this movie on something that is happening right now? That I think that is great, but it's like the message could be equally as effective without like having this kind of moment of revelation through other people, that it actually anchors more on this present.
But it wasn't a revelation. It was her dream.
Well, even if it was her dream, it was a bit more a dream like based on what is happening in reality. You know, it was not like a random dream. It's not like about like, you know, an eagle came from above and just start talking to me about freedom. You know, it was a bit more about like just talking about like cis women came up about very similar cases about abuses from this guy. This is the Me Too movement. It's like right now we identify this reference, but it just
what are those women singing? They say, we became witnesses to his anger, we became witnesses to his violence. That's just her projecting like, holy shit, I'm a witness
yeah, but
to his anger.
look, this is using like the vehicle of how these reveals happen, you know, with the Me Too movement, for actually just saying that it's like, I have to open my eyes, you know, and the part of using this specific vehicle, you know, that you could actually have used the tabloids that they use them multiple times, that is a completely out of nowhere. You could have used that, but it's that you actually add this other piece that is that it almost feels like Leos Carax really wants to set this movie in this present, in 2021, or 2019, 2020.
In that aspect, I would agree. He does to some extent use visual vocabulary that makes sense in the Me Too world.
Yeah.
I agree. But that was one scene. And I would also argue that there are a lot of scenes that are unnecessary, that don't necessarily detract from the film as a whole. Like, I can tell for you that scene is kind of a hang-up, I think.
It is, because I feel like so weird about it. It's like, why do you need this scene? I don't understand. For example, let me give another example, just in case if someone thinks that I'm like just being misogynist or something like that. The scene when he starts picturing an ape like just holding Annette. That is okay. I know that your stage's name is the Ape of God, but why is it even the name? You know, like, why is it even important? Why do you need an ape that right now?
I see what you say, but I mean, it's incredibly obvious that the yacht scene where he gets drunk and she drowns, I mean, that's just a pure scene for scene reenactment from the drowning of Natalie Wood, right?
The drowning of Natalie Wood?
Yes, she was an actress that went on a yacht with, I think, Christopher Walken was on board.
Oh.
There was a terrible fight between her and her husband. She was terrified of water, and then she mysteriously drowned. And it's so clear that guy murdered her.
Wow.
So I bring this up because I don't think he's rooting the film in our time. He's rooting the film in cultural experiences that we all can relate to. And yes, he used one from the last 10 years, the Me Too movement, yes. But he also used other experiences from different times.
Well, and the crazy fires in LA that they happened 3 years ago.
But fires in California have been existing for hundreds of years. It's not like a new phenomenon. The the state burns every year.
That's true, but is it the fires so close to the city? That was 3 years ago. Close to LA. Do you remember? There's people were commuting just crossing next to the highway.
Yeah, but the same thing happened in the 90s and the 80s and the 70s. So I hear what you're saying. I think the Me Too scene was a little too close. It made it feel timely. Yes, timely for you.
Yeah. I mean, that's the point. That is I feel you didn't need it. It's is it something that you're trying to make a statement? You're trying to actually just take this movie as look, this is my perception about what you were saying about toxic masculinity and about just women suffering from this and just men getting away with it. And it's actually who turns the things around. About he's not going to be getting away with it. He's a freaking puppet.
But he made her the puppet, and when she broke free of him, she became a human being.
Correct. And it's a bit more about the liberation of women. They're actually just subjugated under toxic men without realizing.
But also, I want to point out that toxic masculinity got a name in the last 5 years. It's existed for hundreds of years.
Oh yeah, that's right. I mean, it's a bit more now we're at a point that women can actually just step up and say, look, we are just dominating a male culture. It's we are just have to roll with plenty of bullshit, And maybe this is what Leos Carax wanted to display. And I'm fine. I wouldn't say that that's timely, because it's a bit more of a liberation of women. I just feel why in a movie that is so inspired by operas from the last 300 years, you need to drop something like this. And I know I'm pretty hung up on this because it's they're still driving a motorcycle, they are going in LA, all that kind of stuff is from right now.
But I think I understand what you're saying, but I think if you look, he drew on operatic stories from hundreds of years ago. He drew on the Me Too movement. He drew on events, culturally significant events that happened in the 60s and 70s. That makes it timeless. He's speaking to us as people who understand the history of the last several hundred years, in my opinion.
I would actually, look, I think that you actually are doing a good thing. I didn't know this part about Natalie Wood, but it's I think that he actually he draws inspiration for this story about abuses of women. And he actually draws inspiration about opera that is infamous for just abusing women.
100%. That's the theme, I think. For me, when I watched it, because I'm guessing I'm a white man, I was like, this is about a man who hates himself and just self-destructs. But this is probably the bigger theme, is that women are historically the victims of horrific abuse and being used, and this is the result.
Gabriel, I'm going to say something. I think that this has been probably one of the most enlightening conversations that we have had.
And let me point out that this is what we love about cinema. Regardless of whether this is a perfect film, we love that we can talk about it and not argue, but share points of views and gain understandings. To me, this is the best type of film. It really is. And I didn't think I was going to like this film. I didn't think I was going to like it at all.
I can tell you that after I watched it, I was discussing it with my partner, and we were just even talking about what score would you give it? And I was I'm torn because I was liking it so much at the beginning. And then I think that I got really fixated on these heavy-handed parts, that I feel this is actually throwing back. But it's even we were talking about she comes as a ghost, he still abuses of her.
Yeah, he still uses her. And then he uses his baby. It's insane.
Well, but it's like a bit more like the chorus could be about like just the baby singing. It's like, you're going to remember me through my... She's like, I'm going to use the baby. It's a woman. I can use it.
Well, then I think we should get to the questions because I'm super curious to hear your responses because I think we agree for the most part. There are some key differences, but...
Yeah. Would you watch it again?
I think so, yeah. I'm not like eager to watch it again tomorrow, but yes, I would watch this again.
I think that I would even watch it tomorrow just from the curiosity that just left me about like, can I actually just see it like from a different perspective now? You know? And
it would be interesting to see like how, if we remember it correctly, like, you know, what scenes are in what order. It would be interesting.
I think that we will remember it, but I mean, we watched it like recently. But what I think right now is that just watching it from the perspective of just being a bit more of a, I don't know if this is an apologetic letter, you know, about like, yeah, we fucked up across, you know, the last centuries in arts and everything, you know. It's like we made it terrible. This, forgive us, you know, from doing this. I don't know if he actually intended it at that point about like, I'm going to be like taking responsibility for all male, you know, about like saying we're sorry, you know. But I would like to just watch it again soon. I want to look at Henry from the beginning about like, you represent the bad of men, you know, and just Anne as the victim, you know, the kind of innocence, the kind of elevation about like this kind of a romantic idea of the women like just being a bit more of the savior, let's say. I'll be curious. I will watch it like
for the next podcast. Let's just rewatch it.
Let's just give some.
That was a joke.
Okay. Let's give some weeks. Would you recommend it?
Yes, I would recommend it to the discerning cinema goer, someone who's interested in something a little bit more elevated. There's nothing super offensive here, but it's not for the mainstream 100%.
I agree that it's not for the mainstream, but I think that I could use it for my edification. I would recommend it to everyone. It's like, I want you to tell me what you think that this movie is about. It's like, I want more samples. No, not as a test. It's like, I want more samples about, okay, we got to this conclusion about like what this movie is about. You know, about like connecting the dots. I want to know other people. I want to just know, is like, are we done? Like, similar to what we were saying the other day by... when we were like just testing about Gaspar Noé, that is, are we easily offended by Gaspar Noé? And it's like when most people nowadays is like, you know, it's violence in a cinema, in a movie. It's like, it's fine, you know. It's like, it's fine that the kid got electrocuted, you know, or everyone was doing drugs and a girl like died of hypothermia, you know, or this died that it's fine that we actually saw like this girl like getting raped for 7 minutes. Is it for us? It's like, wow, that's crossing some kind of line. This is just shock value. But I feel like maybe we're in a different wavelength from...
I think, based on the Gaspar Noé conversations we've had off the podcast, there's something off about us and our relationship to Gaspar Noé.
Yeah, but it's like, it's exactly what I find curious about this film. You know, when I say it's like, oh, you know, this is a bit timely because the abuse of this, or it took me like a while for actually saying this. Like, okay, this is about Henry being terrible. And it's like,
interesting.
People actually could see this and say like, oh yeah, this is about Henry being terrible.
Well, I don't have any friends besides you. You're my one and best. But you seem to know several people, so you recommend it to your friends. Let me know their feedback.
I will. Would you remember it?
I'm not going to remember the details. I'm not going to remember the songs. I'm going to remember the major plot points. Yes. So yeah, say yes.
Yeah, I could say that I'm going to remember it. I don't think that 100%, but I like Sparks. So when I realized that the soundtrack was Sparks, I was like super excited, you know, when I saw them at the beginning. And we saw them also on the private jet, you know, as the pilots. That is like, they're driving this. They are like just, everyone is a puppet. And they are like just manipulating. And I feel it's like, yeah, I really like it. It's like, it's one of me, you know, my favorite random absurd 80s band, you know, that is like every single time that they release something, it's like, we better try. It's like they're at least like uncompromising about what they do.
This film talked me into checking them out. I didn't know them before this, but I'm interested now.
Yeah, you should give it a listen. So yeah, I'm going to remember it. I will remember that Annette was a puppet, pretty sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
For a while, until the end.
Until the end. And did you find hilarious that she was such a good singer, the girl?
I definitely took that into account. I was like, wow, she's an excellent actress. Excellent actress. The lines she delivers were so authentic, and then she sang, and I was like, she blows almost everyone else away.
Yep. And it's like, once again, Adam Driver as a singer, God save him, but from an acting perspective, he's a good actor. And it was like,
Yeah,
wow,
yeah.
this is decent. You know, it's actually that girl. Usually I have the feeling that it's like, God, no, please just use the puppet again. In this case, it was like, okay, that was cool. Actually, she's singing her own lines. It's not Anne's voice or anything. It's like now it's her singing, saying like, I'm never going to sing again while singing. Now, is there anything artistic about it? I think that we already answered this.
Yeah, I mean, completely. This blew me away with the visuals, the script, the acting was mostly good. Yeah, I mean, incredibly artistic. So different than anything I've seen recently.
Yeah, and for me, it's like a yes plus. It's like if we're talking about like if the no minus would be never, you know, it's like I don't necessarily what would be like yes plus, but yeah, for me, it's like this is cinema. This is like being bold, being experimental, being like uncompromising about like what you want to do, regardless of what is like the accepted as the right thing. You know, that is like even if the race actually train wreck completely, is like I want cinema like this. Is what we usually say. It's like you may succeed, you may fail, but it's like I want to see something bold. I don't want to see on still water. It's like you're playing it safe and you still fail at playing it safe.
I don't want to say that it reimagined cinema because that's too intense, but it did stretch my idea of what cinema can be. It was entertaining. It made me think differently. This conversation has been super interesting to hear a different point of view and agree with your points of view.
Yeah.
This is just the best kind of cinema for me, even when it's not perfect.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. I think that this is like good value. You know, like I watch it at home. It's like a part of me just wishes that I had watched it in the cinema.
Yeah, I agree. I wish I had seen it on a big screen. No regrets, but it definitely deserves to have, you know, the magnitude that it deserves.
Is it a timeless piece?
I'm going to argue yes. I don't blame you if you say no, but I do think this is timeless.
I mean, the thing is, we watched Casablanca recently. Neither of us, sorry to break it to you, were born when Casablanca were released and not from the 40s.
You weren't? How old are you?
No. Yeah, old enough, but not that old. And we feel like, okay, we can understand the reality. Even it's like, I think the Casablanca even has like more value when you watch it like 20 years later. It's like, wow, that was bold that they released this before the States like get into the World War II, you know? And it has still a value. It's like regardless. It's like you can just see some stuff and say like, it was a bit misogynist, you know? But it's still like just a really solid. Exactly. You know, it's like this one. I don't know if it's going to. Honestly, there is like a part of me is like 30 years from now, what are people going to be like watching that they didn't go through this, that they live in a world. I mean, I wish, and this is exactly what I was telling my partner, is like, imagine a world like 40, 50 years from now, you know, like, or 70 years, as from Casablanca release to now, that it was in 1941, I think, and we are in 2021, it's like just 80 years. It's like just think 80 years into the future and just look into Annette, and a part of me is thinking, how will this age, if things are good, if things are honest to God good, it's like if we as a society fix all our bullshit, you know, all this kind of toxic masculinity that is still like undermining us, you know, it's like, will a movie like this have value?
I could be naive. I really do think that if anyone remembers this film in 80 years, it will have the same impact. I really do feel that way. I could be completely wrong, but I do think this can stand the test of time.
I'm so
I don't
curious.
think anybody in 80 years is going to remember this film. I think it's going to disappear into the, you know, how many 5,000 people maybe watch this and nothing more. But yeah, I do think that it is timeless.
For me, it's like, and I know that I'm like just, how do you say, like just when you are looking for very corner cases, like pulling hairs.
Yeah.
I think that is the expression. I think that it may sound like a bit like pulling hairs, but I feel like this is a bit more of a product, not like Old Boys, like Lost Boys. That is like, that's a celebration of their time,
Yeah.
But I think that this is a bit more of a product of its time.
That's fair. So I say timeless, you say timely.
Timely, but I'm not saying that makes it worse. I just
Yeah,
think
yeah, no, I
like,
get it.
It's like this makes sense
Just
on
maybe
this
years is anyone gonna care?
Yeah, I mean, you had to do like quite a bit of investigation about like, oh, this is what it was happening like 80 years ago. They were like this kind of, I don't know, like empowering of just coming up and just saying like how terrible, like male in the entertainment industry were.
Yeah.
Could you turn this into a TV show?
Honestly, I don't think so. I enjoyed it so much in the way it was packaged and delivered to me. I don't want to wait to see a new episode every Sunday. I just enjoyed this exactly as it was. I would not turn it into a TV show.
I wouldn't turn it into a TV show either, but I agree with you. It was extremely enjoyable. It could be turned into one of these like 3-4 episodes because I think that it's really well structured as an opera, in 4 acts, let's say.
Yeah.
That is okay, I see this a bit more like the introduction, like their love, then actually the baby, then actually the tragedy and exploitation, and then you could have like a bit more of a development of the complete fall, of Henry.
So you would say no?
I could say
Or yes.
I wouldn't turn it, but I wouldn't feel peace about this being turned into a short, limited show.
Okay.
Yeah. So, still no, in any case. Do you think this movie could have been better?
Yeah, I mean there are problems with pacing. There's problems with vocals. There are problems with. There's a lot of problems. I don't have a problem with them, but there are some obvious things you could be like, hey, let's get an editor, let's get a script, right? Like, yes, there are things that can be improved. Would I want to change anything? Honestly, I don't think so.
No, I agree with you. I think that's a really good read about like the casting I mentioned in the beginning is surprisingly bad for a musical. This was like surprisingly bad. It's like if they're going to be like singing 80% of the time and you don't want them to do lip sync, except in the soprano because that's unreal, don't go with Adam Driver. Don't go with him. It's like and the pianist is like don't go with the guy there. I think that he may be actually like a real pianist. He may
I
actually
think so. They show him play the piano and it's clearly real.
Yeah. But as a singer, it's like I was listening to the soundtrack yesterday, I think, and it's like, okay, I listen like the whole thing, they're enjoyable, until he sings like, I'm a pianist, but I want to be a conductor. And that pissed me off so much that I had to stop. That is like, there is no reason for me to listen to this. I don't have
Early
to
on,
listen
some
to
of the
this.
songs super pissed me off. That we love each other so much. I can't remember the specific words. I was like, "Fuck you! This isn't a song. I don't want to hear this."
I like it. Honestly, I like it. It's like I actually when we stopped watching like the movie, like 50 minutes into it, and I think that we came from his place to my place, and then we continued watching it, and that movie was like just like burn with fire in my brain. I couldn't stop. We love each other so much. I say like unconventionally, baby.
I don't blame you for liking it. For me, it just didn't work. I was like, no more.
Yeah, no, that's actually fine. So should we score this? Now I'm pretty curious about your score.
I am too. Yeah, we can score this. This was your pick, so I go first. I'm going to give it an 8.5. I don't feel particularly confident about that score. I could see myself scoring at a 9 or a 7, but 8.5 feels right here. So
I had to tell you that is like when we started the conversation, I was coming with a 6. I'm going to go with a 7.5. Listen,
oh wow.
I think if the casting, I honestly, it's like the last scene I was laughing out loud when she turns into a real baby, into a real toddler, and the real toddler seems better. It's like what the fuck, it's like what the fuck is like what you're thinking with the cast? It's like not even as a joke. This actually makes sense, you know. And then I'm still like a bit more. Is like, did you really need like all of that kind of, you know, like current time like references? But I think that he was like just committed to just do like a bit more of a toxic masculinity Me Too and just asking for forgiveness.
And it's interesting because if you read about the casting, when this movie was announced, Rooney Mara was going to star. And then 2 years later, Rooney Mara dropped out and Michelle Williams signed on. And then Michelle Williams dropped out and they got Marion Cotillard. So I think there was this like tremendous shuffling of who's going to play what. So I'm not confident he had a ton of options for what he wanted for the film.
Why Rooney Mara?
I don't think she could have done better, but she was the first one to be signed on.
I think that out of those, well, Miss Williams is good. She was the one from Manchester by the Sea.
Was she in that? I mean, she was in Brokeback. She was Heath Ledger's wife.
Yep.
She was also in Happy Endings a lot.
She was?
No, sorry, I confused Happy
Miss
Endings
Williams?
with Cougar Town because she's best friends with Busy Phillips, and Busy Phillips starred in that show.
All right. No, Michelle Williams is the one from Manchester by the Sea, and I like her. I think that she was like the best part.
I think she's super talented.
Yeah, and then she made Venom. Holy shit. But I mean, out of the three, I don't think that Rooney Mara is better than Marion Cotillard or Michelle Williams.
Well, if you think 2016, she was writing the girl with the dragon tattoo fame, and she was super hot, and I'm guessing it was just like like an audience draw.
I mean, she did a ghost story, but that's pretty much it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that Marion Cotillard, I like her. I think that we discussed like multiple times. That is, I don't know if she's going to have like a long running career. I don't think that she's going to become like the new Catherine Deneuve, you know. But I think that she's really good as an actress.
I agree.
Yeah. But yeah, no, this was a great conversation. I loved it. I have to be honest. And it's not only because of the alcohol.
I agree.
Yeah, the alcohol or the quality of the movie per se. So, what are we watching next? Because I think that we're going to be like completing this duology.
We are. So I had us watch the lesser Blade Runner last week, and now we're going to watch the good Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah, we watched it like 2 weeks ago, but yeah.
I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Originally, that episode was supposed to be comparing the two, but it turned out we're gonna dedicate an episode.
Alright. Yeah, looking forward to actually see like the. I look like a stone. Sorry, I act like a stone, but I look pretty. Ryan Gosling, like trying to be the new Harrison Ford. And yeah, actually seeing like the cinematography of Blade Runner 2049.
Can't wait.
Okay, and to everyone else listening to us, watch Annette. I think that you actually can put up with us, like probably having like an hour talking about this. You have time.
It's on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
You owe it to yourself. Just go watch it.
Yeah. If you can waste like an hour of your life with us, you can just waste 2 hours, you know, with Adam Driver. And he's singing.
So thank you, everybody, and wash your hands.
Okay, bye.